Than land cities. They don't have as much combat strength or as much defense out of the gate, and that's, you know, partially mechanical. Like it was partially a sort of a balance choice, but partially it's logical and a fiction choice because they're floating. They don't anchor. They're just much more vulnerable. They can sink. So water cities are nimble in the fact that they can literally move away from danger, and navies are a little bit more powerful. But that makes water cities much more fragile, especially in the early game, when there's like big aliens around that can just like ace them if they really decided to. So establishing a strong aquatic civ out of the gate, especially with no land anchors, can be quite a challenge. But they can grow up to be extremely powerful because of how valuable the things are you can find at sea. So
it's a large risk for a large ward.
Yeah, and so it makes playing an aquatic-based civ where it's your capital at sea, and that's the city that's fragile. If you lose your capital, you lose the game. It makes them a totally different kind of like strategic thinking process in the early game. How do you keep your capital safe? How do you move it around to get its territory without abandoning your expansion and all that?
It's going to make for some pretty interesting new choices, though, for sure, especially for our Scottish dad bod friend.
Yeah, right.
He's all about that.
I have this theory that David will slowly converge to Duncan Hughes over the course of his lifetime.
I have to get a lot heavier.
Right. Well, you're a dad now.
Got to start
so
cultivating mass.
You can get the dad bod.
Yeah, I'm halfway.
It's like a force multiplier on dad bod.
It totally is.
So, what are some of your new strategies that are enabled? What are some of your favorite new strategies that I guess are enabled by Rising Tide? We just talked about the YOLO, excuse my terminology, building your capital city on the water. Obviously, something that is extremely risky and new. What are some other, maybe less obvious things players can do to get some new experiences?
I really like to paint the city border. I think there's some really creative things you can do with that, particularly in on archipelago maps where there are a lot of choke points. In multiplayer, that can be really fun. So there's a lot of emergent strategy there. There's just we're always trying to really eliminate the golden path. We want each strategy in every game to be different. So you can use kind of higher level approaches, like I want to go for growth early, so that I have foundations to do other things later. Like that strategy you can develop in the base game, continue to deploy in this, but really we want the player every game to be thinking strategically about the map and to make different choices depending on what they find. It's not like we don't want it to be like StarCraft where there's a build order.
Right.
Not to say that there isn't. I'm sure the first week we get this thing out there, people will find some golden path build order, but we're going to try to patch that away.
And that video will get mad views.
I'm sure. But the design goal, the ultimate goal here is to make every turn something you have to think about and not be rote or automatic.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's a very, I think, noble design decision to have it be more emergent and based upon the variables and reactionary as opposed to something that is just set in stone that you were executing the. And that kind of harkens back to some of my early, I guess, RTS experiences before I understood the ideals of an optimal build strategy in multiplayer, and I was just playing with my dad over a LAN. Like, that was the best.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always loved about Civ games is that there may be an optimal build strategy, but it's far from being the only viable one. And there's so many ways to solve every problem that it almost doesn't matter what you do as long as you try.
Yep.
And that makes the game really rewarding to play, especially to play over and over again and try different things. So I'm gonna fight these guys.
Do it.
Next turn. But yeah, sort of like I played a lot of Civ kind of like on my own on my family computer or with my brother growing up, and we would love to we would make our own goals. We would say I'm gonna get to the spaceship, or I'm gonna play the Aztecs and conquer the world. And that's the things I remember about Civ games, playing the optimal build order. Well, is one form of success, but far from the only one, and maybe not really the one at the heart of the Civ experience.
And I think that the Civ player base is one that is open to those new, interesting challenges for themselves in terms of like a victory condition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well, maybe making a base on the water is too risky for if I'm trying to be super competitive, but I'm not. It's I'm trying to have fun. And opening yourself up to a new experience like that, I think, is fantastic. Combat.
Torpedoes.
Oh, those poor alien whales. Terrible.
Could see the cinematics these days, he would probably just cry that he couldn't play these games.
But is this real life? But anyway, it looks like both of our players now have their headsets back on, and there was a complete rush to the players to make sure that they were ready by our entire staff. So really fantastic response times here over in Poland. They're really taking care of these players.
It's actually a fantastic studio, a fantastic crew that everyone working here. Of course, we are going to be diving back into game momentarily, and we were getting to a very tense point. Of course, what we were talking about just before we did kind of break off is we were getting to that point where Sen was rushing up to the muters, and he'd kind of scouted that Snoot didn't really have any aggressive tech.
Yeah, so for now, these Zerglings are going to head on across the map here and have a little bit of a look around themselves. You see a Spinecrawler going down already, and there's going to be quite a few Lings in production, with those Banelings morphing in defensively just to push him away, but he hasn't got full intel by the what's going on with the layer.
Yeah, Snoot a little bit in the dark, but he has seen the 2 gases on the back of the natural, so at this point he can assume it is a Mutalisk build most likely, and behind this we do see a Carapace upgrade from Snoot. Now that's really cool. That's going to give his Lings a lot more oomph on the field, but it won't kick in for a little while, so Snoot's going to be very dependent on Queens. We see him pumping out more Queens, putting down a fast third, and he's going to be very defensive. His whole goal here is spread out a bit of creep, secure the 3rd base, and just be impenetrable to any harassment. Only once he gets 3 bases powering out drones, powering out economy, that's when the game really starts for Snoot. Up until then, he's just going to harass a bit.
Yeah, the Queen defense is something that I love in Zerg vs. Zerg when it comes to the Mutalisks, because even then, later on, you can sometimes potentially follow that up with Nida Swarms and try and push across the map, even, well, if you want to spread out creep really fast, which is something that Snoot does in this matchup as well. So he does have options available to him after knowing what he knows.
Oh, nice micro from Sen, getting 2 of Snoot's Banelings. Looks like Sen wants to put the aggression pretty hard. He's building a lot of Zerglings.
That's a lot of...
Interestingly, adding on even more Zerglings here. Looks like he really wants to keep the pressure onto Sen.
Roach Warren's on the way here as against the 1-1 melee upgrades currently going down for Sen, and the range obviously on the way here for Snoot. So not only will that benefit his Roaches once they flood out, but it's benefiting the Queens as well as this game goes on, and that makes it a little bit harder for these Mutalisks to really do anything at the moment.
Yeah, with lots of 10 Queens out and 11th on the way, Snoot is going to have a potential Queen aggressive push timing, and the push distance is not that far on this map. Look how much creep spread he's got all over, and these Mutas haven't really found a single window to get in and kill any drones yet. Snoot has actually been so greedy with his anti-air.
Is it not important? Well, these Lings are going to try and run past again here, but is it not important for these Mutalisks to shut down this creep spread? I mean, right now, there's one there at least, so at least he's killing off some creep screamers, but that's a lot of Queens to push.
He really does need to, because Sen's game here is not about attacking anytime soon. He is getting an Infestation Pit, getting those melee and Carapace upgrades. He is planning to go up towards Hive and head towards those tier 3 units, the Broodlords, the Ultralisks, the late game. That is where Sen's plan lies. And Snoot, he hasn't realized this yet. So Snoot right now is just saying, let's build Infestors, let's build Roaches, I'll be ready for your Roach follow-up and I'll have a bit better upgrades. He has no idea right now that there is going to be a huge defense of just Lings and Mutas all to buy time, and eventually that's when the tech army hits. And you cannot fight Broodlords, you cannot fight Ultralisks with Roach Infestor. You will get destroyed if you let it get there.
It's going to be difficult. A few more Mutalisks are going to be added here for Sen. And on a map like this, as long as you've been able to limit the creep spread, then technically bouncing between some of these bases with Mutalisks alone is quite strong. It's very difficult to run between these bases with your anti-air of just Queens alone. They're very bulky units and they do take a while to move around these bases.
And this is just doing such a good job of keeping Snoot back. Keep in mind, Snoot still doesn't have that vision. He just sent a Zergling into the third, and he did spot quite a few Zerglings from Sen. He still hasn't seen any Roaches, so Snoot might be starting to wonder, what are you up to? What is going on? Because once he realizes this is happening, he needs to push. He needs to get across there. He needs to push with his Queens, with Hydras, and he only has about another minute and a half to make that push happen before Ultras or Broodlords are going to be out.
Sees himself that high. Very, very important scout there as Snoot now gets what is going on. He understands what's happening behind all of that, because, I mean, if you look at the mini-map, he's had very little vision for the whole time. It's been difficult for him because of the Mutalisks having been out for so long.
And he's going to have to, realizing that, he's going to have to push soon. We see Hydras on the production tab. Interestingly, Snoot starts a hive of his own. Now, this is fascinating. The standard response is kill the guy before he gets the hive tech.
Yeah.
But Snoot, being the crazy defensive, confident player that he is, looks like he's actually going to go for a hive of his own.
He finds quite the pocket of Zerglings on this left-hand side. These Roaches got more than they bargained for, as they're going to have to be fought off against. And well, the other Roaches are going to come around, but at least these Lings have been able to trickle on through here and get towards that third base. Actually, it's more than a trickle, it's a flood at the moment. Trying to kill off skills.
Couple of Hydralisks there, which is a nice pickup. Muta's coming into the main. Oh, Sen not watching them, loses 4 Mutalisks to those 2 Spore Crawlers in the blink of an eye. Oh, you know, this has done a good job of keeping Snoot back, but that was a lot of Zerglings he lost, a couple of Mutas, but the Ultra Cavern is about to finish. Sen's about to get to that happy point where he wants. 2-2 Ultras on the field. This is going to be great.
I love watching Spore Crawlers against Mutalisks. It's like, before the change ever happened a long, long time ago now, they were like tickling away at them. Now it's like a nuclear bomb hit them. It's very, very difficult for them to do anything against Spore Crawlers.
It's like the StarCraft's video, man. It's just that giant green radiation beam of death.
Well, this is quite the strong force that Snoot has on the ground, of course, here, but he's going to be going up against 8 Ultras very soon here, with Kindness placing on the way and 2-2 just about to finish. So those 8 Ultras are pretty darn powerful.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what Snoot's plan is here. He's dropped a Spire and +3 range, but if you want to go Broodlords against this, that's viable, but why not start the Spire earlier? I don't understand what his plan is.
Is his plan to throw down a load of Infested Terrans and use them as a barrier against the Ultralisks, maybe?
He could, but he's not maxing out. This push is really weird from Snoot. It's so dangerous. There's going to be Ultras, Lings, and Mutas coming from every side, and Snoot's army is small. This is not a big army.
Look at the positioning already of those Infested Terrans. Just throwing down a few at a time here to try and bottle up those Ultralisks before he even does anything. Lings coming around from the backside, though. They get onto one of those Infestors. Good stuff. It actually forces out a fungal growth on from them, and the Mutalisks are able to do so much in this straight-up fight with the Ultras being able to support them.
Oh my god. I mean, Sen cleans that up, and he does it well, but I thought that was going to be a landslide victory. Snoot's Infested Terran force fields were actually fantastic there. But he is still so far behind. As I was saying, he didn't have the Queens with that attack. That's like 10 Queens not in your army, and you're not 20 supply away from max. When that should be a max push, he had the money. So this was a really crazy push from Snoot. And now, with masses of Ultras, Zerglings, and the Mutas still alive, all on 2-2 upgrades, his army is just going to be less cost efficient. He's going to have to try to hang on somehow, but I don't know what he can do here.
+3 weapons on the way here for Snoot at the moment. Economy is looking relatively even, but Adrenal Glands on the way. Ultralisk extra being added on, and this army moving forward. Transfuses are important at the moment here, keeping those Queens alive at the front, tanking up some damage. Snoot will push it away.
Snoot here, looking like he wants to stay on Roach Hydra. He feels like he can make it happen with this competition, and interestingly, going to try and get aggressive again. He seems to have just such confidence that with the right focus fire, the right control and positioning, he can take on this Ultralisk army head-to-head. And interestingly, Sen's still a little while away from being max. Sen's been trying to drone up this 4th base, and maybe there's a window here for Snoot to make something happen.
Needs to bottle it up, needs to make sure that he can actually just slow down the Ultras from advancing on. Right now, he's trying to separate his ranged army up a little bit at a time backwards here, but against that many Ultras and Mutalisks, it's not enough.
Those aren't Stim Marauders and Marines. They don't micro that well like that. I mean, he made them more effective, but Snoot here is looking a little bit desperate. Once again, not having the Queens with his army. That's a lot of supply there, and Sen just has so much stuff right now. I think Snoot's realizing how hard his situation is, and he feels like the longer it goes, the further he'll get behind, and it looks like Sen, realizing he's got the army superiority, is just going to crash through here.
Time for the Transfuses to try and pay you up, but I don't think it's even going to help out. They're trying to launch down as quickly as possible. Roach is up towards the top here, killing off some of the Ultralisks, but not quite enough. +3 weapons is just about to finish up, but in the nick of time, before, just before all these Ultralisks have been able to crash through it and deny any of the units from doing any damage anyway.
Oh, Sen's gotten away with his build, rushing up to this high tech, and he is just destroying Snoot straight up in these fights. Snoot's army cannot compete with these Ultralisks just barraging their way through. Just a very powerful play from Sen.
Really just let Sen breathe too much during the entirety of this game. The Ultralisks and Mutalisks going to clean up quite a bit. Hydras try and come for the reinforcement, but that's still so many Ultralisks available to Sen.
Oh, look at this huge ball of Sen's.
Uh-oh.
Banelings, just going to add it in there. Sen getting a bit of flair with his army. Of course, they're going to be amazing against the Hydralisks as well, just adding that oomph behind those Ultras. And Snoot's going to go for one big concave, see if he can hang on with a bit of positioning. But when you have about as many Roaches as they have Banelings and Ultralisks, you are in a pretty bad position.
Yep, Baneling's just going to walk on around to the side. There you go, GG. Game number 2 goes to Snoot. He ties up the series. Will keep himself alive here in this first match between him and Snoot.
Really nice play there from Sen. Just played the early game very well. Snoot banked a lot on trying to get that third down of Sen's, trying to do something with that Zergling aggression, and he wasn't quite able to make it happen there. He pushed in hard, but Sen just hung on, he kept defending, and it was just really great defense from Sen. Once he has the mutas out, that's Sen's happy zone. He's so good at just controlling space and pushing them back.
Well, that means now we are 1 apiece here in our best of 3. We're going to go to a short break, and when we are back, it will be Snoot versus Sen and the World Championship Series. Welcome back to the World Championship Series here at round of 16 as we now enter into the third game here between Sen and Snoot. And Sen being able to really, let's put it bluntly, play his game there in that second match.
Yeah, I mean, Snoot went for a little bit of a different style. We thought he was going to sit back and defend more with his queens. We saw him really absorb some attacks, but he kind of went aggressive, and Sen was like, hey, I've played this 1,000 times. Great Baneling defense, great Zergling defense, and from there, he just made his way up, bought so much time with his Mutalisk and Zergling harass, and once he had those Ultras out, he was home, sweet home.
Yes, he was. And now we're going to go to Cactus Valley here for Zerg versus Zerg. And we've actually seen in cross positions this map actually work out in a very, very favorable way for a similar style to how Sen's played before. But can you talk to us a bit more about the map here?
Well, Cactus Valley is a bit interesting because it's such a large map and there is a lot of diversity. When you think of cross map, it's so far away as opposed to if you get the vertical or horizontal spawns. So there is that factor which comes into it, but you've also got the fact that the entrance to the natural, very tight, very narrow. So you do see sometimes players love to do a defensive play. They figure, I can wall this off so easily. I can really play a defensive play, something which, of course, Snoot loves to do. It's also a 4-player map. Whenever you're playing a 4-player map, scouting becomes a bit variable.
Yes, it does, of course. I mean, even just the first overlords, where they go, is something that can be, you know, a little bit kind of up in the air. Are you really going to be able to spot your opponent first? Are they opening up something really crazy to try and kind of counteract that position? It can be a little bit scary in this matchup.
And once you add that variability into scouting, you see a lot of players love to play more high risk, high reward, right? They figure if you're not going to have the information, I have a much higher chance of this sort of high risk, high reward play going unpunished, you know, getting the payoff. So we do see players going to either end of the spectrum. Either the fast attack, I'm going to go for an all-in rush, I'm going to try and kill you, or the opposite, they say, I'm going to cut a corner here or there. And I mean, from watching a few VODs of Sen's play, researching him before, I've seen a lot of games where he loves to just, at the point where any other player would build a Baneling nest, he's like, nope, don't need one of those. You know, he loves to cut these little corners, get a few more drones out, squeeze a few more, and it puts him in such a strong position just a little bit further down the line. Now, Snoot might be aware of that, so he might be wanting to put on some pressure himself. But either way, this is now game 3. It's 1-1, and this is where it gets to that tense moment, and both players are a little bit afraid to throw the game away.
That's certainly true. Right, we're loading up into game number 3 now here between Snoot and Sen. Obviously, Snoot wants to be able to win this one, move on to the winner's match, wants to find himself a first place to keep his strong chance alive to try and push him forward, of course, into the global finals. Like 31 with 1,700 would need a big extra bank there to be able to push him through. A lot of hope goes behind him. But for now, up to the top right-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg representing Hong Kong Attitude. It is Sen. And then down to the bottom right-hand corner, our red Zerg representing Team Liquid. It is Snoot.
Such a tense match here. Both players going into Cactus Valley. We did see Snoot in the vetoes, taking out Iron Fortress, showing he doesn't really want to play these big 4-player maps as much, but he did veto on Bridgehead, which I guess is a map which is also very strange in some way. So, in some ways, I should say. So it looks like, you know, going into this, both players, neither of them is going to risk it on one of those crazy all-in fast rushes. We haven't seen an early pool yet, but you've just got to feel the sort of tenseness in both of these players. With every decision they make, so much weighs on it at this point. Yeah. And it really does get to that point where both players are trying to juggle that line of let's not get too over-eager, but at the same time, let's not be too afraid. Let's try and be confident here and go with what we know, go with the strategies that we're strong with.
And already both of them opening up with a usual go-to response on this map. It's like, well, I'm imagining they're probably not going to try for something super aggressive. Going for hatchery first, putting themselves in a strong, stable, economical position at the very beginning of here. But of course, you know, we have seen aggressive moves from here, because sometimes going for your natural means that you just have access to more lava.
Absolutely, and fascinatingly, Snoot's actually dropped a very fast gas. Really fast, down at that 2 minutes and 25 seconds. So, I mean, not to get overly technical, basically that's an incredibly fast gas before pool after hatchery. He can do a lot of aggression off this. A really fast Ling Bane all-in, a big Speedling rush. He has a lot of options open to him. Sen's opened much more conservatively with his gas after his spawning pool. So it looks like Snoot may want to be the aggressor here. This does cut a little bit of his economy, but I think we're going to see him go for a big attack to try and get in Sen's face.
This Overlord's about to find out exactly where his opponent is, and that is going to give Snoot a small heads up, at least where to be able to send his units once all this goes down. Does see that hatchery down. It also gives him great comfort as well. He hasn't really seen much up until he sees that hatchery, which means that now he knows that, oh, okay, that was the same timing as mine. Oh, okay, I know you weren't going for some crazy, like, earlier pool, for example.
Oh, and this is so great for Snoot. It just gives him all of the options in terms of knowing he's got the information now to know the risks involved. Sen, on the other hand, just is going to feel so in the dark. He's going to know he's been scouted, you know, quite early, but he's just not sure what could be coming his way. And this is just really hard for Sen. Meanwhile, we see that, oh my god, that is a fast Baneling nest.
She's a wolf in mouse clothing. The mouse's ghostly howl stakes claim to...